the one and only Jackson Hinkle, one of the great influencers for the better of people in the United States and increasingly around the world. He's a political analyst and he's the host of a great show called Legitimate Targets. Jackson, welcome back. We didn't expect to see you again quite so soon, but you're right at the best place to analyse the importance of what happened to Charlie Kirk and to speculate, for we are all entitled to speculate as to who might have done it and why they might have done it.
Well, thank you for having me back on the show. I have a lot of questions, obviously, that I've been airing out on my Twitter. I wouldn't dare do that on this platform because sometimes there are questions known as forbidden questions that you're not allowed to ask on certain platforms. But individuals like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Mike Cernovich, and the great journalists Max Blumenthal and Anya Parampil at the Gray Zone have been documenting what they were witnessing in the months and weeks leading up to this tragedy in Utah, which was a war of epic proportions going on behind the scenes involving at its center Charlie Kirk, as well as U.S. President Donald Trump, Netanyahu, the state of Israel, and the state of Israel's closest allies in the United States, who happen to be donors to Charlie Kirk's TPUSA organization. Unfortunately, for those donors and those who seek to spread the message of the Zionists in the United States, Charlie Kirk was beginning to wake up to what was really going on with Israel and the rest of the world. And he was challenging this publicly to a lesser extent, privately to a great extent, even doing it directly face-to-face to U.S. President Donald Trump amid the 12-day war with Iran when Trump was considering striking Iran. Charlie Kirk paid a very large price for this in the sense that his donors canceled on him. They threatened that they would do that, and that's exactly what they did after Charlie Kirk said he was going to host Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith at the annual AmFest convention in December of this year. Now, I'm not necessarily coming on your broadcast to say that this story and the many other facets that go along with it are connected to the tragedy in Utah this week, but I do find it extremely suspect that anyone is out there telling us that we're not allowed to ask any questions about this, given that in the last interview Charlie Kirk did with Ben Shapiro, he asked Ben Shapiro, don't you think we should be allowed to question Israel? He asked him 6 questions about that. And personally, I think we should all do exactly what Charlie was saying and do just that.
I'm into that. We'll come back to some of these key differences that were clearly emerging. He was obviously a man of some courage. He faced down Donald Trump and had a shouting match, a one-way shouting match, with Donald Trump shouting at him over the Iran war. He was opposed to it, as you say, but these are not the only questions you've been asking, and I think millions of people are asking. It's a bit of a stretch, isn't it, to believe that this fellow who was changing his clothes like some kind of chameleon, who first had a gun, then didn't have one, then did have one, then didn't have one, had a gun that was left for him by someone else, therefore he was firing it for the first time, that particular weapon, and who left no trace, no fingerprints, no DNA, despite all the changes of clothes, on the roof, before the roof, and after the roof, suddenly and helpfully is intercepted by decoys or stooges who are seeking to divert the attention of the security forces. All kinds of things don't really pass the smell test in this affair. Am I right?
You are right. There's too much to even cover in one segment, I think, here. And the real shame is the FBI is not taking the time to answer any of the questions that you just brought up, or the questions that go beyond that even. They've been very tight-lipped, and they did mention one thing, though. The FBI came out a few days ago and said that foreign intelligence had assisted in the investigation that was ongoing regarding this tragedy in Utah. No updates on which foreign intelligence, what intelligence was provided, if any, if the intelligence personnel were on the ground in the United States, whether they were handling any evidence, so on and so forth. But yes, there's many questions about the suspect, who, by the way, was just exposed by the governor of Utah, Governor Cox. He came out and said that the suspect is, in fact, not cooperating, and he is not admitting guilt in this incident. So that draws even more questions. Of course, you mentioned the chameleon-like character of the switching of the clothes. Why is it that there is absolutely no CCTV footage or security camera footage of the suspect with the Mauser bolt-action rifle? Why, if he disassembled the rifle, was it reassembled in the wooded area near the school? I don't know. I have a lot of questions about this. Also, one more thing, the former deputy director of the FBI came out just 2 days ago and said that initially Kash Patel's FBI claims that the suspect was wearing tactical gear during this tragedy, during the incident. And seemingly, I guess he changed his clothes again because there's no footage of him wearing this tactical gear. We only have the photos of him wearing the black clothes. So I'm left wondering, like a lot of people, what is really going on here?
Help us, Jackson, for those who are not in the United States, not with the zeitgeist that you are as a young political figure of some note. We don't know who's who, many of us, in the United States. What was Charlie Kirk, and how did he differ from other important figures on the right?
Well, it's an important question. Charlie Kirk is a man who was deeply involved in politics from a young age. He started Turning Point USA, which is a predominantly university age organization. Its members are all across the country. If I'm not mistaken, there's thousands of these chapters of this organization all across the United States, and they have chapters outside the United States in different countries. So it's really an international organization of young people who promote traditional values and are described as conservative. The key point here, though, is that through this organization, he built the infrastructure amongst the youth that rallied Donald Trump to his election victories. Donald Trump said as much after he won the 2024 election. And as you correctly pointed out at the start of this segment, it would be no mistake to say that Charlie Kirk would, in fact, run for president one day if he wanted to. He'd have the capability, the infrastructure, the donors behind him to do it, and he could very well win. He was groomed, I would say, from a young age by the Zionist lobby. He visited Israel many times. He was a very staunch advocate of the Zionist cause. He really was one of the main proponents amongst youth of Judeo-Christian values, as they call it. And that's why so many people were shocked to find out these new revelations that are being aired out by Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, who are both very close friends of Charlie, about how that relationship soured, why it soured, and how Charlie was fearful about what was to come, given the fact that he was a very big Zionist for the right-wing youth movement in the United States.
Now, Donald Trump's behaving very strangely over the whole thing. Asked about it the next morning, about the death of a young man who had given his whole life, really, to the Donald Trump cause, about whom he'd spoken so eloquently the night before, He was asked how he was coping with the death of his young friend. He said, okay, I guess we're concentrating on our new ballroom. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be bigly. It's going to be the best ballroom in the world, and all of his usual hyperbole. And then he went to a ball game, and he was literally disco dancing and pouting. How devastated is Donald Trump by this turn of events?
I think Donald Trump is fearful, and that's not me saying that. I think this, is something that shocked him to his core. I don't think Donald Trump is the type of guy that necessarily knows how to handle something like that. He's usually not in a position where he has to be fearful of anyone or anything. Now, what I suggest everyone here do is at some point after this live stream ends, go to the Gray Zone and read the article that was published by Max Blumenthal and Anya Parmpill, because the source that they cited in this article was not just a close friend of Charlie Kirk, but also a Trump White House insider. And this source went on record, I guess anonymously went on record, to say that the Trump White House and Trump himself is fearful of Netanyahu, that not too long ago, the Secret Service caught Israeli intelligence placing electronic devices on the emergency response vehicles of their own cars. And this source also said that they do not believe the official FBI story about what is going on right now. And they believe that there were outside powerful forces responsible for what happened. Max Blumenthal stated that in his conversation with Tim Dillon just yesterday. So I think Trump is fearful and he doesn't know what to do.
So what happens next? Some of these idiots, so-called leftists in America, openly glorying in the slaughter of a young man in front of his wife and children, scarred forever for life, glorying about the death of a fascist, murdered in cold blood. They don't seem to realize that the next guy murdered in cold blood might be somebody they approve of, somebody they support, or even themselves. Are we about to enter into a maelstrom of tit-for-tat violence? Are we heading towards civil war in America?
I sure hope not. But myself, Haz al-Din, the chairman of the American Communist Party, who's a close friend of mine, he has been, we've all been predicting that this is kind of where America is headed. A lot of people talk about, civil war, this sort of thing. But I don't think anyone has any real conception of what that would look like in today's day and age. It wouldn't look like two conventional armies facing off against one another. It would kind of look like what we witnessed this week. It would look like what the streets of Chicago look and sound like on a nightly basis, or Philadelphia or Los Angeles or New York for that matter. It would look like sporadic violence happening left and right. Most people's normal lives would continue as they do, but you might have a breakdown of essential services, of society as you know it to a certain degree, and there would be more and more chaos and more of this violence happening all throughout the country. And maybe if it reaches a certain fever pitch, you might even have certain armed groups, factions that take shape and have different power centers across the country, different gangs, different militias, different political organizations. And I think this is a result of America's failure to address the root causes of these issues that the American people are facing. Why are we waging all these wars? It's what you've always been saying. We've always been saying, why not focus on the issues that matter to average people instead of the issues that matter to the top 1% of our country?